Let's talk about senior leaders, right? This is unique to DevOps in a DoD bureaucracy. So everybody in the government has senior leaders, right? There's senior executive staff personnel at every executive branch agency. But in the Department of Defense, there's a lot of those senior leaders, right? Your general officers, your flag officers, your SESs, right? The folks who have stars on their shoulders or on their sleeves are in the mix. And here's the way this generally works. If we go back to the mountain, right? Your senior leaders are at the top. The senior leaders have a vision, right? Senior leaders typically come in, they have a mission. Let's talk about a division commander, if you will, in the Army. Former Army guy, so I know the Army force structure really well. So general officer comes in, they're going to be in charge of the 82nd Airborne Division. They have goals that they want to accomplish, right? They've been given instructions by their superiors. Everyone has a boss around here. And so they come up with a vision, they come up with objectives, they come up with goals, things that they want to accomplish, and they're typically 2 to 2.5 year tenure. General officers don't sit in one spot for very long, right? They typically get 3 or 4 months to get acclimated to their job, then they have about 1 year to 1.5 years to actually get stuff done, and then they have about 3 to 6 months to transition out to their next job. That's kind of the life of a senior leader. Senior executive staff, right? SES civilians, a little bit more dwell time, but even then, if you look at SESs, unless they are a deputy to an operational unit, you have an SES in a fourth estate agency or in the Pentagon, they typically rotate through their jobs every 2 or 3 years also, just because they're so demanding. Okay, so those senior leaders, they set the tone, they set the strategy, they set the objectives, and then those middle tier staff folks are supposed to help implement that, right? It's supposed to filter down, and then at the edge, right at the bottom level, those end users are the folks who actually have to take the action, right? Those are the folks who enact that strategy and actually go out and do the thing, right? Senior leaders come up with the plan, come up with the vision, and then the folks at the bottom actually execute that vision. The folks in the middle facilitate those things happening, plus or minus a little bit, right? So if you're actually going to get a new piece of technology into the hands of those operational end users, the folks that you like talking to so much, it has to align to some degree, ideally to a great degree, with the vision and objectives of those senior leaders. The nice thing is that those senior leaders tend to publish those visions openly, right? You can go find Force 2025, Force 2035. These things get published pretty frequently, and they usually roll up, right? There's usually an overall Army vision that the Secretary of the Army or the Secretary of the Navy, the Chief of Staff of each of the services kind of publish and outline. And then the subordinate commands, the generals in charge, the flag officers in charge of each of those organizations kind of publish their own, typically. They typically publish these things, right? So if you have a new technology, it behooves you to make that technology align with that senior leader vision, okay? And have that very well in mind. And coordinate that, work that with the staff, and work that with the operational folks. So you have to kind of keep those 3 ideas in mind. And really, the way to be the most effective in this game is to identify the incentives here, right? The operational folks at the edge, they just want to do their job better, faster, right? They want to do it with less effort, less work, less weight, right? Less lag, less hassle. They have the same job to do day to day, so they just want new tools to do it better. The folks at the top, right, those senior leaders, they might be trying to get their next star. They might just be trying to get their current job done really, really well and achieve their objectives that they set out in their strategy so they can retire really well. The folks in the middle, they want to satisfy the senior leaders' objectives and satisfy the operational end users' needs, while also, kind of getting promoted and doing it with the least amount of hassle. And you can really help them with that. You can go a long way to satisfying each of those different communities' objectives and incentives, if you have a really clear idea of what they are. The best way to do that is identify what those objectives are, identify what those respective incentives are, be very clear in your mind about how they work, and then you do the extra legwork to connect all of those people. Because again, that senior leader might see the folks at the edge every once in a while at a passing review or an inspection or at a field problem, but it's not their day-to-day. Their day-to-day is at the staff level. Their day-to-day is PowerPoint and Excel spreadsheets. Same thing goes for the staff in the middle. And staff in the middle is just trying to keep the trains running on time. And those folks at the edge, they're worried about their next training cycle and their next deployment cycle. So if you can be the connective tissue within those three groups, right, coordinating and leveraging their different capabilities and satisfying their respective incentives, then they will in turn help you satisfy your incentive, which ultimately is selling your stuff to the government.